How's it going, Dowell? I think I asked you at the beginning of spring practice, but 14 practices in, is there a percentage of the playbook that you would say this is done, I'm comfortable with that, or is that just constantly evolving?
Constant evolution. Still trying to figure out who we have, the personnel we have, what run schemes we're good at. Just working through all of that stuff. When you practice, you get 2 special teams period, 2 team periods, and the ones are taking 12 to 14 reps a day. So it's a long process of trying to figure out those things. It is constantly moving, and it all of a sudden like you go down rabbit holes with like, hey, oh, we're good at this. Well, let's also do this, and this, and it kind of, well, we got to get back to this, and that. So it's just constantly moving. The one thing that I have been fired up about is how much ownership that Spence has taken in everything. And he's like, hey, what about this? And hey, what about that? And like, hey, can we do that? And like, hey, you may be ready to do that, but we got to get the other 10 guys on the same page playing to your speed right now. So that's been exciting. That process has been a lot of fun going through it with him.
Yeah, I know it's only been, 14 practices in, 13, whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to think about it over the summer, but 13 practices in, how much have you learned about yourself in terms of this role as an offensive coordinator? I know you've done it at the NFL, but some of the things that are different, obviously, at the college game.
Yeah, it's the same thing as going through the process of like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. Or something I learned last scrimmage, like you get the ball in the middle of the field 30 times in a game, which never happens in college football, and the defense like can't get lined up because is it a field call, a boundary call, it's in the middle, and I'm sitting there like, wow, we should try to get the ball in the middle more, and like it's just chaos over there. So there's still parts of the game that I'm learning and figuring out that, hey, I like this, or that plays really good in the NFL, but it doesn't fit here because of the field dimensions. And we did this with so-and-so, but we're not ready to handle that load, and we only get 20 hours with these guys. So obviously, like in the NFL, the playbook's here, and you got to get it down to like there in a 20-hour rule as well. So it's more about learning about ourselves as coaches, but also learning about the volume that your players can handle, and and that's constantly evolving as well. And it is year one of an offense versus, at Arkansas we were starting year 3, and so just trying to figure out those things and what our guys can handle and what they can't.
Kind of looking ahead at Saturday, what are you hoping to accomplish in the spring game Saturday? Is there anything specific you're really trying to target to get some guys some work before you kind of have to break again for the summer?
Yeah, the spring game to me is not an evaluation. The final evaluation will be tomorrow at practice, just because the way we're going to organize the spring game, and I'll let Coach talk about that stuff. But we need to put one more good day in. Anytime you go out, you're competing. But to me, the next biggest day for us is getting the tape corrected from today, see where we're at, and then having the next practice and opposed to the spring game.
Dell, you mentioned Spencer and kind of taking that ownership. Is there anything you've seen? I guess I know it's a short time period, but in the time working with him, is there anything that's maybe surprised you, or something new you've learned in that time about him that maybe you didn't expect or didn't know about when you first got here and evaluating him?
I didn't have much of a background on him, just because I don't know a whole lot of people in college football. I spent my whole career in the National Football League, but I was able to talk to scouts and general managers and, hey, what is he? And the thing I kept hearing was how talented he is. The thing, I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier, was what I've really appreciated and enjoyed the process of is like how he kind of embraced it. I need to learn some things, and there's carryover and there's new stuff, and trying to figure out this and what he's comfortable with now. And it's like, hey, like he'll stop me on the middle of the field and be, hey, can we do this? I'm like, you can you're an artist, not a blacksmith. Paint the canvas however you want to paint it. Like, yes, but you got to make sure the protection ties into the route and the route ties into the protection, and you got to get the other 10 guys on the same page. And just to see him kind of his knowledge grow that way, or his thirst for knowledge grow that way. And I think sometimes that happens when ownership is given to someone, then all of a sudden they take it as it's theirs. And you're not just running, hey, here's Dowell's playbook and here's the coaching staff's playbook and we're going to go run it. Well, we have a blank canvas and we can make it whatever we want. So I've been really fired up about that with him, to see his kind of curiosity and hunger to have more of a say and more involvement in doing stuff, which has been really cool to watch.
Dowell, when you took over as offensive coordinator, you and Coach Beamer both talked about streamlining this offense. How has that gone through spring practice? And when you say streamline, what does that necessarily look like from the outside?
Well, I don't know if you see it from the outside. I think you see a team that looks well prepared and organized, and you eliminate the plays that lose games, the false starts, the turnovers, the sacks, not being on the same page in protection, not having free hitters in the run game. That process is still going on. We've learned a lot in 13 days, and there's still a lot to go. There's a whole summer. Like this process just doesn't start or stop after tomorrow's practice or after the spring game. Then we transition in the summer, and now we have 15 days of data to kind of say, okay, you go back and you watch cut-ups, and you say, hey, what are we good at? Hey, this surprised me that this cut-up looked better than that cut-up, or I thought we were better than this, and you get to go back and study it all, and you kind of reassess everything. And then you start building, okay, this is what we started with. Like your playbook starts here and then starts to get to there when you figure out what you're really good at. And then you figure out, okay, who are our best 11? And do we have different packages to get, if you have 15 really good players, like do we have packages so those other 4 to 5 guys that aren't in the huddle, that we have a package for those players as well. So that's when streamlining starts. And we're still in the evaluation process, and we will start that. Like you get a grasp of that amount of time of like, hey, who are your best 5 offensive linemen? You might have 8 good offensive linemen that are ready to play right now, but who are the five best? And streamlining some of that stuff means like, okay, like let's get creative in how we play these guys, and let's make sure that he's just not a right guard. He's just not a right tackle. You create position flexibility because you have to see the weakness of a roster before it comes a weakness. And all of a sudden you take one piece away because injuries happen, or maybe this guy is he's not ready to play, but in 6 weeks he might be after a summer and after a training camp. And so like it's constantly growing that way.
Dowell, you've said the spring game is not an evaluation. That said, will there be an emphasis to try to get some of the younger guys out there and play?
Every time you go on, every day is an interview. Every day you go on there. So I probably misstated that a little bit. Like I'm not using this to evaluate the quarterbacks. Like they need to go out and play well and play to the standard and execute the offense in a certain way. Obviously, it's on TV. I believe it's on TV. It's on TV. It's open. Like we're not going to do a lot. Like we're not going to show a lot. It's going to be vanilla ice cream, which is my favorite ice cream, but it's going to be boring. And you guys all know it's going to be boring. And we're going to try to create some excitement with some plays and give guys opportunities. But you're not going to see schematically a lot of stuff. It's like preseason 4 in the NFL. Like the starting quarterback plays one series, he's got a baseball hat on, he's joking around the whole time, eating hot dogs and talking to the backups and helping them get ready. So that's kind of every time we step out there, there's a seriousness because you're playing a game that is very violent, dangerous. And every time you step on the court or the field, like you're expected to compete at a very high level, but it's going to be vanilla offensively.
Dad, you've seen them play a couple of scrimmages now. I mean, from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2, were there any like major improvements you noticed, and kind of what are you looking to see on Saturday from that perspective?
Yeah, I thought from the skill guy position, we took a step in the scrimmage 1 to 2. I didn't like the way we ran the ball in the second scrimmage. We have a long way to go that way as far as that goes. And I would probably say we took a step back, to be completely honest. But it's the part of the process of trying to figure out who the 5 best offensive linemen are, what schemes we're good at. We know we have a quarterback. We know a couple of 4 or 5 of the wide receivers of what they are. Obviously, the tight ends have a great feel for those guys because one of them I coached, and we've been able to do some stuff. So every scrimmage is like it's the only way to get better at football is to play football, and you learn so much about everyone when you just put the ball down and play. It's the ultimate. It's like why the NFL has 4 preseason games, because if it's just practice, it's hard to evaluate because you know each other. You know who's got strengths and weaknesses. You know what your defense does. They know what you do. They know when you do this formation or that motion. Like it's 1 or 2 or 3 plays coming, and that's why in the NFL we go practice against other teams. It's because we want to feel differently and get a better evaluation. So those scrimmages are so valuable. Like I said, I think from a skill standpoint, we took a step forward. In the run game, we took a step backward. So hopefully execution's better on Saturday. Hopefully we have a good practice on Friday and a clean practice and continue to clean up some of the mistakes from there. So that would be my answer.
Dowell, you've mentioned the run game, and I know it's going to constantly evolve, but what do you feel like this team has the ability to do well in the run game, and what's maybe the next step forward as you look ahead?
Yeah, it's still right now for me too early to answer that. Like I said, I was just disappointed in it. On the last scrimmage, I was disappointed in the way we executed. I hope we can throw the ball well enough that it softens the defense, that gives you lighter boxes. Because obviously I do know what we have at receiver, and I do know what we have at quarterback, and I'm still learning the run game. I'm still learning up front what we are and who we are.
Coming into the spring, you had a lot of film on Spencer, a little bit on Luke, and really not so much on the other guys.
Yep.
Now that you've seen the other guys a lot, what can you share about that group?
Well, it's still I haven't seen them a lot. We have 6 scholarship quarterbacks and probably 28 reps a day, and we're trying to get 2 or 3 of them, with 2 of them for sure, the one like Luke and Spence, ready for a season, try to figure them out. And the other guys have been sprinkled in, and they're working really hard, and they're been really unselfish and not complaining about reps. And it would be natural for them to to complain about reps because they're not getting a lot of them. But you create your own reps. That's our message to them: is you create your own reps. You win a scrimmage, and if you go 3 and out, then the message is convert, make a play. Like you make a play, you get another set of downs. Like you create your own reps. If you go 3 and out, then you get 3 reps. The next guy's going in. So. Like I said, I think we have a good feel. I know I have a good feel for the 1 and the 2 right now with the 2 guys that start at the top of the depth chart with Spence and Luke, and still learning on the other 4 guys.
You mentioned NFL preseason week 4. You mentioned playing other teams. That's something Shane Beamer's talked about. Would you want to see in college football the ability to play other teams in the spring or maybe a preseason type thing in August?
I'm going to let the head coaches talk about that. That's way over my pay grade.
Dal, going back to Luke, is the importance of being able to have a backup quarterback that you can trust, especially if a situation were to arise. What are some of the things that you notice outside of obviously the experience, which plays a big part, that has allowed him to really show you things that allow you to have that trust in him at this point?
I think he's a great teammate, number one. I think I've probably mentioned that to you guys before in here. Unbelievable teammate, unbelievable leader. He has a charisma and a passion about him about work. He brings an attitude, a great attitude every day. Football is important to him. His teammates are important to him. His life is organized outside of football. Like he's got his priorities right, so his football's right. You can't be off the field a mess and be good in football. It bleeds into each other, and he's got his life in order. He's a guy that's on time. You can count on him all the time, and he's a talented athlete. He's big. He's thick. He's strong. He can run. There's some things accuracy-wise that we're still working through, some things fundamentally that we're working through, but just a guy that's played, a guy that's unselfish, that is going to be the best player he can be to help the offense, which also means helping Spencer, but also pushing Spencer every day, and not, so there's a fine line of there's a competitive nature there as well. And he enjoys every time he gets a rep. He puts a smile on his face and he goes out there and enjoys it. And there's something that's contagious about that. Like every person in your room, just like every person in this room, like you bring something different to your personality, who you are. You bring something different to the room. He's the energy guy. Like, he's the guy that comes in every day and is like, let's go. Like, what do we got? Like, let's go. Let's give it to us. And something like every personality is different, and that's what he's kind of the spark plug guy that he brings that kind of infectious personality to the room. That's like when you see him, you just smile because he's like, what? We're ready. Like he's amped up. He's ready to go, and he's fun to be around that way. And then every day you walk in there, sometimes like you're walking in, and we're an early practice team. It's like 6:30, 7 in the morning. You got like a coffee. You're cranky, and and he's just sitting there smiling. And you're like, why are you smiling? Like it's early. Everyone's tired and cranky, and like you should be sore from yesterday's scrimmage, but he's just sitting there smiling. So that he brings something he lightens my day. And he's someone that, as a coach, like you want to coach those type players because they give you energy as well.
Dowell, a couple for you. Do you know about the off the bench play? Been kind of a spring staple around here.
Fill me in.
All right, so they've had a few spring games where it's just they get down close to the end zone and somebody, usually a celebrity, runs off the field and they throw him a touchdown. Like Dawn Staley did it one year.
Yeah.
Now Alshon Jeffrey did. I didn't know if they brought it up to you.
Well, I've called some touchdown plays for Alshon. So if Alshon and Connor are listening to this, come on. I think they would have been great celebrity coaches for the game as well. But no, I have not heard about that. We get Darius Rutger. Let's get some South Carolina people out here and do this.
Yeah. And you mentioned NFL preseason fours. Which quarterback of yours was actually eating a hot dog during the game?
I did coach Sanchez. I had Ryan Fitzpatrick. Cutler cared too much about his diet to eat hot dogs. If he did, he would definitely sneak eat them, and not in front of everybody. So.
All right, we'll let Coach go.
Appreciate you guys.